So,
All right. Good evening, WNBA and women's basketball fans. Glad to be back with you folks. At least finally for once after a couple days off and a little bit of a late start tonight. But good evening, folks. Alongside our starting lineup tonight of Eric Nimchok, Crystal Thomas, Reagan Patrick, and Tanisha Stewart. Under the weather. Yikes. Cal McClure joining you folks here from Studio 171 in San Diego. On tonight's edition of WNBA 365. Everyone, good evening. Good to see you again. How's it going tonight?
Hey, hey.
hi.
I'm fighting Team Rocket.
So with that, folks, again, we will gladly take your input like normal on Twitter or in our live chat box, of course, at WNBA 365, at Calamac3, at ShortyMamba24, at Pup1010, at _rap, RAP24, or at Nemchocky with the hashtag WNBA 365. Or, of course, if you're joining us in the live chat box on YouTube, hit up the live chat box to get your comments, your questions, comments, or concerns, or any comments you have during the course of our program. And again, folks, please, if you can, I know you probably don't have a lot of patience with me tonight, but try your best to have some with me as I've been going through a week tonight, or just a week of the minor head cold, the sore throat, but other than that, getting back in shape and getting back to full strength, hopefully by the weekend sometime soon. Guys, we have a lot to get to. As you guys know, we've missed a lot over the past few days. But starting off tonight, guys, with the big news from a couple days ago where it finally, sadly, guys, came to the bitter end for Storm great and Australian basketball legend Lauren Jackson, who announced her retirement back on March 30th as the three-time WNBA MVP announced her retirement from professional basketball. Selected back in 2001, Jackson ranked 6th all-time in the league in points scored, 8th in rebounding, and 3rd in blocks. Jackson was also named to the WNBA's All-Decade Team in 2006 and is one of the top 15 players of all time voted in 2011 during the league's 15th season. She last had a full season with Seattle in 2012 and is the team's all-time leader in scoring, rebounding, and blocks. She poured in a then WNBA single-game scoring record of 47 points at in a game at Washington back on July 24th of 2007, collecting the 3 MVP awards in 2003, 2007, and 2010. She's also an 8-time All-Star, 7-time first-team honorary member, and was the 2007 WNBA Defensive Player of the Year. And shortly, like we said, Tanisha, starting with you, obviously, not the way you wanted to see someone like Lauren Jackson leave the game of basketball, but of course, injuries piling up for LJ. Since 2012, we didn't get to see her at all play in 2013, 2014, or even last season. She was on the comeback trail for 3 straight years, and things just never really fell back into place for LJ. But short, as you think back to her breaking in back in 2001 and giving 11 years of her time to the WNBA 2 titles as well with Seattle, how will you remember Lauren Jackson's career in the WNBA as you think back and think over it as well?
When I think of Lauren Jackson, I think evolution. You know, she brought, evolution, the next generation of, WNBA player, because she was that hybrid player that, just wasn't a traditional, back to the basket post. She also could step out in the perimeter, also behind, the three-point line as well. So, like I said, she just represents that evolution within the WNBA that also continued with later on future stars that came in, such as Candace Parker, Alina Deladon, and will soon to be in this league after the draft, Brianna Stewart as well. So those same players followed suit. But Lauren Jackson was, the first person, to come in the league and, like I said, bring in that, hybrid type of style, being a post player and also a player that can play on the perimeter. So when I think about Lauren Jackson, I think about the evolution that she brought to the game, and she will dearly be missed.
Reagan, Shorty brought up a great point about, how LJ kind of helped, sort of, I guess kind of revolutionize the post game, I would say, for players, playing the forward or center position, and I think though too, but she was probably one of the more influential players that began, began the WNBA international flood that came to the U.S. Of course, a lot of the Australian players have come to play in the WNBA. We've seen, a pretty good following, though, of other foreign talent, either from Japan and from Europe and from these other places. So I'd probably say that, in my opinion, we'll get to my opinion a bit later on. But I guess, Rap, how do you remember LJ, though, for her career spanning from 2001 to 2012? And, she brought a lot to this league and a lot to that organization up in Seattle, but how do you remember Lauren Jackson specifically?
A great player. All around great player. Like Shorty said, she opened a lot of doors, especially for the forward and the post players. Um, you can definitely see her game in Elena Delle Donne, and you can definitely see her game in Candace Parker. So I think she just opened so many doors, and she was just a great all-around player. And I'm happy that she gets to start a new chapter in her life, but I'm also sad that she's leaving the league. So.
Crystal, we always hear on the NBA stage of players emulating or copying or taking moves from Michael Jordan. You can kind of say that Lauren Jackson was kind of like that player. Players wanted to, pick and choose moves from either in the post, either something that they would use for either, changing up their court vision, or there was some, characteristic trait or skill set or move that players would emulate, try to duplicate or copy from LJ because that's how good of a player she was, as Shorty and Rap hit on the head. How she revolutionized playing the game as a post player, as a forward, or even as a center, or even playing, either of the two guard positions. And as I said, though, too, how she kind of opened the door for more international talent, either from Australia or more foreign players to come and join the WNBA. KT, what is your everlasting remembrance and overall final thoughts on LJ's career in the WNBA?
I'm going to remember her as a winner, first and foremost. I mean, she helped Seattle win their championships. And like Reagan and Shorty said, I mean, I think she brought the international game to America and made it more, made it to see like, oh, post players aren't just good for, backing down, back to the basket. She really made it, she made people realize that post players can extend their range and extend their game and be elusive like guards. But I think the thing that I almost remember her for is just being a winner overall.
So, Eric, I think in the span of a couple of weeks, we've had, someone I've known, of course, in Candace Wiggins retire, and just a couple days ago, yesterday, a player that you admired watching and growing up when you first got into the WNBA, Lauren Jackson, also retiring. So, Sally, man, we've taken 2 L's before the season's even started with 2 of our favorite players retiring before it's been all said and done. But again, Eric, to not see LJ on the floor the past couple of years has been pretty tough, and he's seen how Seattle has kind of, fallen off the face of the earth without LJ's presence there and what she's meant to that city. Between Sue Bird being the mayor of Seattle basketball, Lauren Jackson was 1A or 1B for Seattle basketball. Eric, how do you remember Lauren Jackson's, illustrious career in the WNBA? We've heard winner, we've heard, revolutionizing the game, we've heard about international talent. How do you remember LJ's game and why?
All right, I just beat Giovanni, so I can focus now. All right.
Yes.
Lauren Jackson is, in my opinion, I don't want to say, I hesitate to use the phrase greatest of all time because then people are going to come and be like, oh, Maya this, DT that, and that's perfectly fine. And unfortunately, because her career was cut so short, I don't think she has much of a case for the greatest ever. But when you talk about prime, like at the peak of her career, there was nobody better, and I don't think the WNBA has seen a better player at her peak than Lauren Jackson. From like 2004 to 2007-ish, she was just unreal. You talk about players who, pretty much everything else has been said already, but she was such a versatile player in her day that she really did revolutionize the game for she was the prototypical stretch 4 or 5 who can hit the outside shot, who can take you off the dribble, who can post up with the best of them. Her turnaround jumper was just unguardable. She did everything. She blocked shots. She rebounded. She got to the free throw line. Just an amazing overall player, overall talent. And I wrote an article for today's Fast Break. You guys can check it out if you want. But I mentioned that she really accumulated all of these statistics because you look at the WNBA record books and LJ is at the top of like nearly every category. She accumulated that. She only played 1 full season, really. The rest of it was, cut short by injuries. She stopped playing when she was like 30. I mean, when we last saw her in 2012. So that just gives you an idea of how good she was. Like, she was able to assert her dominance over the game in the WNBA in such a short period of time relative to other players' careers, you know. So I would just say how I'll remember Lauren Jackson is just one heck of a player, just somebody who, again, opened doors, like Reagan said, paved the way for players for the prototypical stretch four players who can, you know, who can do more than just post up, you know. And I think, again, internationally, she was just so respected. You know, the country of Australia holds her in such high regard. I know people who watched the Olympics, like 2008, 2004, 2000. She was there. She was there, right there with the United States in every one of them. And if it wasn't for the United States, I think she'd have a couple gold medals too. So, just an amazing player, an amazing career, and I wish people could remember her for that rather than how it went out, because it's a real shame.
Yeah, Eric, I would agree. You know, you don't want to remember an athlete for how they retired, either injuries or whatever or what have you. But again, folks, the big story from yesterday, at least, in the WNBA, again, longtime Seattle Storm player, two-time champ, three-time MVP, Lauren Jackson stepping aside, retiring finally, making it official after being away from the WNBA for 3 straight years with so many injuries that she had accumulated with ACL problems and a lot of other problems that had plagued her. But again, LJ finally and sadly stepping aside and retiring from the WNBA and pro basketball. And I would personally hope and would love to see the Seattle Storm retire her number sometime in the future. Okay, Shorty, a couple of local stories quickly. One positive, one negative. We'll get to the negative side of a story first that was broken a couple days ago as well. But guys, LA Sparks guard Riquna Williams, who the Sparks acquired in a trade a few weeks ago, back earlier in March, with the Dallas Wings, will be out for the 2016 season. Suffered a ruptured left Achilles tendon while playing overseas, over in with her international club. No timetable has been set for her possible return for 2017. But again, Riquna Williams done for the year already. So Shorty, already 2016 for the LA Sparks is already off to a rocky start already, as much as LA, probably, fumbled the football on this trade earlier on when they sent Aaron Phillips and swapped draft picks, plus giving up their 2017 first rounder, and they got a player, so basically it was a injured player for injured player swap, and one of the players already gets hurt, so already that now permanently makes Dallas the winner of that trade from March 1st. Shorty, any thoughts about this at all? Because it just seems like this is another way for the LA Sparks to get kicked in the teeth before a season even begins.
Exactly. It seemed like their luck continues to dwindle. I mean, they had a very tough season last year, and then they make this trade, which I was definitely against, and then this happened. But ultimately, I do wish Riquna Williams a speedy recovery, because the type of injury that she has is not only, a season-ending injury, but could, fatally be a career-ending, injury. So hopefully, she gets surgery and recovers, well from it. But just again, about the trade, it was very tricky on the LA Sparks' part to pull the trigger on that. They did. Now it will be pressure on Los Angeles to make the playoffs, because if they have another tough season, and again with the playoff change and things like that, so they can't, rely on, the West, because conferences have been eliminated, so they can't rely on the West to ultimately, get in the playoffs. So if they miss the playoffs this time, they're pretty much in a mess. They have no first round pick. So, I mean, hopefully, they'll make the playoffs and have a good season this year.
And Crystal, I also think, though, too, this is also a point of where the new draft lottery format also does not help Los Angeles. It is now, again, folks, the combined record of the past 2 seasons for the top 4 picks of the draft. So obviously, Crystal, for LA, Crystal, in my mind, there is no room for error in 2016, but yet there's already been one error in 2016. This is the injury to Riquna Williams, of course, a player that they got to fill a need that they've had, which of course is the guard position, but of course it wasn't the right type of guard, and we had some questions back here on March 1st about what the role was going to be for Williams, but well, we can't see it come to fruition, KT, because of the injury. So I guess, like I said, though, this permanently now gives the Wings the win for that trade back in March. So I guess, Crystal, any final thoughts about the story that broke about Raquana Williams again ripping her Achilles while playing overseas just a couple days ago?
I don't know if I'd really say the injury was an error. I would say more just bad. The trade sucked, but injuries suck. It's not really anyone's fault. That's just the worst. That's part of the game. Like Shorty said, I do wish her speeds. It's LA just has bad luck. Maybe she's not LA's time yet. Eventually it will be. They always say when bad things happen, something good's going to come out of it. So we'll see. But I don't know. I mean, it's too early to really tell. Season hasn't started. Training camp hasn't started. Nothing has really been said and done yet. But we'll see. I think we'll just have to wait and watch how this season unfolds.
So, Reagan, the Sparks are already, the ship is already beginning to sink, I think, already in 2016, and we haven't even gotten to draft day or training camp yet because already here LA, takes a gamble, and obviously you're going to either win or lose gambles either at the casino or in pro sports when you make a move like this. And, sadly, they're going to pay, they're going to face the consequences of not having Williams for the whole season. So I guess, Reagan, other than the fact that Dallas officially wins the trade now that Williams is done for the season, but what does that leave LA for right now in 2016 in your mind going forward towards drafting and even into training camp?
I feel like they're in trouble. I don't think you can say anything else more about it. They're in trouble. They need to come up big in the draft, and honestly, I don't even know if they can do that now. So we'll just have to see when the season starts.
So, Eric, obviously, as we get closer to draft day coming up in just over 2 weeks, roughly, April 14th is when we'll have draft, of course, folks. The draft, of course, will be seen on television on ESPN. So, Eric, now that Williams is done for the season, I know that you have pretty much lived and died by saying LA needs a guard in the draft. So, Eric, we'll go back to you. What is LA's best option at the guard spot for the number 6 pick in round 1 of the draft coming up in a couple of weeks in your mind, and why?
That's a good question. I would say either Rachel Banham or Tiffany Mitchell because, for one, I believe they're going to be the best available at the position because I think, obviously, Mariah Jefferson is going to be good. If Mariah Jefferson's there, absolutely you're going to take her, but she's not going to be there. So, and also I don't think Courtney Williams from South Florida will be there either. So I think out of the remaining options, Banham or Mitchell will be their best bet, not only because, they're guards, but because they can play a little bit of point as well, which LA will sorely need, obviously, and also for their outside shooting ability as well. It's going to be tough to replace a player of Williams' caliber, with her explosion and her shooting ability, especially from a rookie standpoint. But like Reagan said, they can't mess this up. There's no room for error on LA's part. They just really can't afford to mess. And it's not ideal for Brian Agler either because, we saw last season when they were basically running Candace Parker at the point. She led the league in assists after she came back, but as we saw, that was not so ideal against the Minnesota Lynx in the playoffs, and I don't think Agler wants to do that again if he can avoid it, but he may have to. So they got to make a good decision in the draft, and perhaps free agency, perhaps training camp options. Also, Ana Dabovic, if she comes back, that'll be also a big boost for LA, but obviously, foreign players, we never have any idea what their plans are. So, yeah, LA needs they need a little bit of help right now.
So, Shorty, in my opinion, right now the ship is already sinking. But LA may have though been thrown a lifesaver or may have found a life raft available at their disposal by signing former Liberty standout and All-Star Essence Carson to a contract today, announced by Executive VP and Team General Manager Penny Toller. The 8-year vet holds career averages of 7.7 points, 2.4 boards, and 1.2 assists in 231 games played, 119 starts, all with the Liberty. Selected back in the first round at number 7 overall in the 2008 draft by New York. She leaves New York ranking 7th in team history with 1,790 points. She helped lead New York to 4 playoff appearances during her 8 years, including 3 trips to the conference finals. In 2008, she appeared in and started every game of the Liberty's run to the conference finals, averaging 16.8 minutes per game and 5.7 points per game through 6 contests. The 6-foot guard had her best season back in 2012, averaging career highs in points at 11.6 PPG, 3.4 RPG, and zero point 0.7 BPG, and 27.3 MPG in 34 games played, 23 starts. And in 2011, she averaged 11.3 points, 2.8 rebounds, and 1.7 assists in 32 games, and was selected to represent the Eastern Conference at the All-Star Game in 2011. And it should be mentioned, folks, as well, that Carson is also a 2-time WNBA Community Assist Award recipient presented by State Farm, most recently winning the award back in June of 2015. So Shorty, perhaps LA may have rescued part of their season for now with the signing of Essence Carson, who I was told well beforehand that New York was not going to be retaining her for 2016. So Shorty, Penny Toller, I believe, and I even told this to our 6 man of the year, Todd Mintz, earlier in the day today, guys, that this is like the very first time in a long time I've seen Penny Toller make a move to fill a void after a player had an injury or something catastrophic came up and they needed a fill-in piece or fill-in puzzle piece for a position that they have lacked in, and they got a pretty significant piece today. So, Shorty, overall take on Penny Toller may, perhaps for right now, saving LA's 2016 season for the meantime, with Carson coming to Los Angeles. What do you think and why?
Yes, I agree. I really think Penny redeemed herself, with the signing of Essence Carson. I mean, for a while, everyone's been, trying to figure out where she would go. Of course, after not quickly returning back to the Libs, and of course, Monique Curry knew beforehand also, but couldn't say anything, even though she was dropping hints and things like that. But yeah, I definitely like the signing, for Los Angeles. I've always been a big fan of Essence Carson's. I love watching her play the same way Eric loves beating Team Rocket. But I think, like I said, it was a great signing for LA. They really did shore up a position that for so long fans have been, talking about, LA needing a real SF, or she can also play SG as well. But just that SF position that has never really been filled since, to be honest, since Marissa Coleman left. So, you really have that real puzzle piece in Essence Carson. She can definitely bring it on the defensive end as well as the offensive side as well. And I think that even though her numbers were down, from last season, she was still an integral part of, the New York Liberty's success. So, hopefully, in the press release as well, she talked about needing a change of scenery. So hopefully she can come to LA and, be her best.
And Shorty, I want to say with you real quick as well, because not only is LA getting a good player on the floor, but also a community ambassador as well. Of course, Essence is really outgoing. One of the few players that I also know on kind of a personal level. When I had met her after New York had played in Los Angeles last year, I got to meet the entire team though. But just talking to Essence for a bit, either on social media or after that game I was at, so humble, so down to earth, and of course, she can, do a lot of things in the LA community. Of course, the Sparks are really good community ambassadors in the Los Angeles area with what they've done for the past few years in the area in Los Angeles, and of course, as well with Essence also doing a lot of work in the music industry. Capitol Records is like 20 minutes away from Staples Center. So, there's an option for her, but I guess Shorty, I guess, what kind of person off the court, though, is LA getting with EC coming to Los Angeles as well? Because I know we've got a good player, though, Shorty, but I mean, we've got someone that's won Community Assist Awards. We got a good, we've got a future music producer, perhaps, who's going to be on there, but also, someone that's really outgoing, though, and appreciates the fans, though, and also appreciates, the city that she's embracing and she's playing in. So I guess, overall thoughts about what LA's getting from Essence off the floor, though, as well.
I definitely think, they're getting, a player with a big heart as well. You talked about, her, her giving her hand in the community. I think she, if I can recall, won the Community Assist Award 2 times recently in 2015 as well. So yeah, she definitely loves lending her a hand in support to the community. She can do it for the the communities around here in Los Angeles. Also, yes, we do have Capitol Records, Sony, Big Tower in downtown LA. So yes, if you need any music execs, the connections there, we definitely have them here. But also, I guess I'll throw this in that, I did talk to her, earlier on Twitter today, and one of the questions that I did ask her was, what would be the first, places she would visit as soon as she landed in Los Angeles, and she said, first thing she's really going to do is just, visit, family and friends. But the main thing she wants to do is just visit, a beach and chill and relax. So I directed her to Venice Beach because that's where mostly the team hangs out anyway. So she can definitely chill and relax, at Venice Beach. But like I said, she lends her hand in the community, and she can definitely do that here in Los Angeles.
I only fist pumped about Capitol Records, folks, because one of my favorite bands, Muse, produced one of their albums recently in 2013 at Capitol Records, so that's why I gave them one of these. So Reagan, I think sometimes when I'm on my timeline seeing stuff, I think it kind of takes a little extra to kind of get you excited for something sometimes on Twitter. And this move, I think, it gave you that smile today from what I had seen. So obviously, so we have Shorty on board for the move. So I guess. Wrap in your mind, what is LA bringing in with Essence Carson? As Shorty said, though, obviously change of scenery, but what is LA bringing in to obviously fill the puzzle piece, in that void that, is going to be left open by Riquna Williams? So what is LA getting with Essence Carson coming to Los Angeles in your mind?
Well, first off, I just want to say, yes, I was very excited about this. New York was one of my favorite teams because of her and Cappy. Since Cappy left, it was just because of her, and now she's with LA, so I'm very happy. But off the court, we get an amazing person. She does so much she did so much for the community in New York, and I'm really excited. Although I don't live in LA, I'm really excited to see what she does and just see the impact she has on the community there. And on the court, we're getting a player that gives it her all day in and day out. Hopefully she can stay healthy. Hopefully that injury bug does not hit this year. I am praying that it does not hit this year. But like I said, we're getting a player that will leave her all on the court, and I think this could be a great year for her, honestly.
So Crystal, so now we got two people, obviously, that are speaking really high about Carson coming to Los Angeles. Obviously, for the player you're going to get on the floor, plus the person you'll get in the community off the floor too. So if we ever run into her, we're going to have a good old time seeing her at Tom's Urban's or somewhere in LA Live, perhaps after a game, KT, this year. But Crystal also, like I said, I was bedridden for like the fourth straight day, except when I'd gone to the Laker game last night and gone to a few other events earlier in the week while still being a bit sick. But today, when myself and Todd Mintz were talking about this today, Crystal, there are two things that we both brought up at the same time was grit and determination is what she's also going to bring to this LA club as well, which I think Crystal they've kind of lacked in that grit and determination department the past couple years. So I think Crystal, what else would you say though that Carson will bring to the Sparks this upcoming season?
Defense, because Lord knows. Watch out, LA in defense. She's gonna bring a lot of defense. I mean, I think that was one of the things LA lacked. Is they lacked everyone playing defense. I mean, you had times where you had Candace Parker would take a couple of possessions off on defense. You have players like KT who just don't know how to play defense. You have, I think she's gonna bring team, and that's one thing I'm looking forward to. And like Reagan said, if she can stay healthy, I think she could provide some really good production. We don't know that hurt Al. We don't know if she's going to be a starter or off the bench yet, but I think either way she can bring a little bit of production as long as she stays healthy. But her defense and her toughness is what I'm really most looking forward to.
So Eric, in spite of LA having that injury to Riquna Williams, Eric, I'm gonna kind of put you on the spot and throw you up into the suites at Staples Center with the GM and owner right now. We're going to put you in the front office for a bit.
Okay.
How much credit do you think, though, Penny Toller does get, though, for making this move, during a time where LA, made one move and the move kind of backfired, but here they kind of, where Penny Toller kind of redeems herself and, and gets a really good player off the free agent wire in Essence Carson. How much credit, though, does Penny Toller, though, in your mind, get for making this move, though, in your mind?
I'm sorry, but I don't really think she gets that much credit, only because this is a move made out of necessity, and it sounds like Carson kind of wanted to come there anyway. So it's not like she really went out and actively recruited Essence Carson to, I mean, they had to make this move. It was plain and simple. So I mean, yeah, obviously it's cool that they signed her and everything, but when it comes to a move made out of necessity, I find it hard to give GMs credit because, like, yeah, the Sparks needed a small forward. Yeah, congratulations, you signed a small forward. Like, it just doesn't seem like that big of a deal to me, honestly.
So again, folks, in spite of the Sparks losing Raquana Williams, who was potentially going to be a starting guard for them or somewhere in the fray with a Achilles injury, the Sparks, though, do redeem themselves in a very small way by signing free agent Essence Carson to a contract today. And again, Carson leaves New York after a very good career of 7 and 8 seasons over with the Liberty. Being there since being drafted to New York since in 2008, and again we'll be on our way to Los Angeles coming up very, very soon. And again, that is the only major move so far on the WNBA home front. All right, guys, so the more important events coming up on Sunday evening. Women's Final Four will get underway in Indianapolis on Sunday. 2 games, of course, at 3 o'clock and 5:30. Both those times at Pacific Daylight Time. Oregon State against UConn, and Washington taking on Syracuse in the second game. Shorty, obviously, the first game, Oregon State and Connecticut, again, will tip off the action on Sunday. So, Shorty, Oregon State, again, outright Pac-12 champs in the conference tournament this year. Really great season for them, but, of course, Shorty, they are facing the big bad bear of the UConn Huskies, of course, on a mammoth roll, still piling up wins. And again, I think it was a stat I saw earlier this morning, I think, or on ESPN that said, they've won like 120 of their last 121 games, and I think all of them except for one have been by more than 10 points or more as in regards to point differential or margin of victory. So, Shorty, what are your thoughts, though, about the first game of the Final Four doubleheader on Sunday between the Huskies and Beavers at 3 o'clock?
I think, sadly, it's going to happen as majority of all the UConn games, or at least teams that UConn has faced in this tournament, is going to follow the same rule book. It's going to be, of course, teams don't have much familiarity with each other. So first quarter, going to be filling out each other. By the time, UConn figures them out, they're pretty much going to roll past Oregon State. So, yeah, we already know the formula that's going to go on there. But much props to, Oregon State for getting as far as they did. No one saw them going to the Final Four. I know I didn't. They ripped up pretty much all of our brackets. So, again, much props to them, but it's going to be UConn all the way.
Reagan, I think everybody in America that took part, not just in our Tourney Challenge, but across office polls or on ESPN.com, all had their bracket shredded or, went up in smoke and flames because of Notre Dame and South Carolina and Maryland all fizzing out well before they were going to get, well before the Final Four, which, of course, I believe everyone in here in some capacity had those, had Baylor, they had Maryland, they had Notre Dame, or they had all those upper tier teams in the the last part of the picture. But of course, it didn't pan out this year, which I believe the Final Four field, except for UConn, the other 3 teams, this is basically giving UConn a title right now, is what I'm going to say about this, because with no Notre Dame, there's no Maryland, and there's no really tough competition that would give UConn a better fight than 10 minutes of play, where it would be an all-out war for 40 minutes like the Irish would give, or Maryland, or whoever. So I guess, Reagan, any thoughts about Oregon State playing UConn in the first game on Sunday night?
Um, I say UConn wins by 50.
All right, so we got
That's
UConn by 50. Crystal, how about you?
I do think it's cool that other teams have broken out into the pack and have made it there, but yeah, UConn is gonna take this team away, especially Oregon State. They're unathletic and they generally don't do well against athletic teams. So I don't know how much, but UConn's definitely gonna win.
All right, Eric, how about you? How about a win for somebody, and how about margin of victory too?
Well, obviously UConn. I can't bet against UConn here. I think I have a hard time seeing Oregon State do better against UConn than Texas did. I think Texas actually played really well against UConn by UConn standards, obviously. But that was, like Crystal said, that was because Texas, they could get out and run. They had good athletes. Oregon State does not do that. They're more of a half-court team. They run a lot of pick and roll with Ruth Hamblin, with her in the post and everything. Shoot a lot of threes, but when UConn forces them to miss and they get out and run, I don't think Oregon State's going to have any answer for that. So I say UConn by at least 30.
Yeah, okay. I'll take UConn by 25. I'll kind of give them a little bit more leeway. All right, and then Shorty, the matchup of Cinderella squads at 5:30 on ESPN2. 7-seed Washington and 4-seeded Syracuse. The last two Cinderella teams will battle it out to see who will take on either, more than likely, UConn or perhaps Oregon State for the national title. Shorty, this is a pretty intriguing matchup. Again, two teams that no one picked to get anywhere either out of round one, let alone get to the Final Four of the tournament. And big dance here, Shorty. What are your thoughts, and who do you have winning this game, and why?
My heart says Syracuse, but I can very well see, Washington winning. I mean, this team just, I wouldn't necessarily say they're like evenly matched, but like I say, like they could, hit each other, back and forth. You talk about 3-point shooting that has been big in this tournament so far for both teams. Washington has that. Syracuse has that as well. So, I can just see a big, 3-point, match with both teams draining threes. You have Chantel Osahor, with the unorthodox form, that could hit threes. And then for Syracuse, you got Butler, just was insane in the tournament from beyond the arc. So, like I said, it's going to be, a pretty, tough matchup. But my heart says Syracuse, even though Washington could very much, win as well.
All right, so we have one rooting for Syracuse. Rap, how about you?
Man, I just know this is going to be a very good game. I'm very excited for this game. As far as who I think would win, I have no clue. To me, they're very much evenly matched. The only thing I can't see Washington doing is running with Syracuse, and that's if they do get a lot of fast break points. That's the only thing I say Syracuse has the upper hand on. But I say it's pretty evenly matched, and whoever wins, wins.
All right, so that's pretty fair. Crystal, how about you? Who wins and why? Okay, so much for that. Crystal's stuck in a deep freeze right now. Okay, Eric, how about you? Who wins and why? What do you think?
Yeah, this is going to be a really interesting game because I think it's going to be a game of different coaching styles. It's going to be a real chess match because you look at Quentin Hillsman for Syracuse. They love their zone. They love their zone defense. They never switch out of a zone. But when they upset South Carolina, they conceded the 3-pointer to South Carolina, and we saw South Carolina really took advantage of that in the first half. But then they stuck with it. They stuck with the game plan, and they cooled off. But will Washington cool off? I don't know because they've got the better shooters. So it's like I said, it's gonna be a real chess match because Washington, you bet they can shoot the 3, and Kelsey Plum, they're gonna need a good defensive game plan against her. And Chantel Osahor, extremely unorthodox player, but extremely effective too. So they're gonna have to come up with a game plan to kind of keep her in check. I don't know, man. I think Washington, they're gonna have the best player on the floor in Plum. That's for certain. It's gonna be whether Syracuse can muster enough of a team effort and a defensive game plan to slow her down enough so they can give themselves a chance. I say Syracuse is going to win, but it's going to be very close.
All right, so 3 on board for Syracuse. Crystal, let's try this again. Who do you have winning and why? Still no luck there
She
with
doesn't
Crystal.
know.
So yeah, well, when you get a matchup like this, when you get a matchup like this, folks, yeah, I would say the same exact thing of being a little bit indecisive about who you think's going to win. So we'll get back to that later on. But as far as I go, it's going to be even. This may be a game that comes down to that may finish between 1 point, 2 point, or 3 point finish perhaps. But hey, give me some plums. I'll take the plums over Syracuse in this one. But again, it'll be one of those games that'll come down to the wire. May go to overtime for all that I know. Perhaps, who really knows? But I'm not a big guy that likes eating fruit. But hey, I'll take a few plums with me to the upcoming for the weekend coming up on Monday. All right, Crystal. Okay, Crystal's back in. Let's try this again. Crystal, who do you have winning and why?
All right, sorry about that. I think I'm gonna go with Washington because I think like I said, plus I think seeing Washington UConn will probably be, even though we already know who's gonna win it.
Yeah, so we got me and Crystal going with Washington, Shorty, Reagan, and Eric are with Syracuse, but Shorty, I believe, is kind of on the fence, so I think it's kind of almost even Steven with that. So again, folks can catch the UConn game at 3 o'clock Pacific on ESPN, and then Washington, Syracuse at 5:30 on ESPN2 Pacific time. Winners will advance to the national title game, where it could be UConn or Oregon State taking on either Washington, or it could also be the Syracuse Orange. Okay, guys, back to the never-ending debate that has now spread to ESPN television today about the WNBA and women's basketball potentially lowering the rims. That, of course, has drawn some some national attention on ESPN today, from His and Hers with Michael Smith and Jamel Hill to Around the Horn with Kate Fagan and Jamel Hill this afternoon, along with Pardon the Interruption and also the 3 o'clock edition of Sports Center. That, of course, Elena Del Don joined Lindsay Zarniak via Skype to talk about her potential idea. So, Shorty, now it's kind of like this is now a out-of-control dumpster fire. Now it's to the point now where it's been talked about on national television between 2 different daytime talk shows and the mothership show of Sports Center. It was talked about 3 different times in a 2-hour span between, or more like a 3-hour span between 1 o'clock this afternoon, 2 o'clock this afternoon, and then the 3 o'clock edition of Sports Center on the West Coast today. Shorty, as much as this was talked about on social media, kept private up until it kind of was spurred on more by EDD going forward, and now it is to where it's at now, where it's been on ESPN and talked about by the national media. Shorty, I guess, is there any more thoughts you'd like to add to the conversation we had about this on the last show a couple days ago?
I think that this controversy has blown over thanks to what some might call the greatest of all time in Diana Taurasi, when she came out and gave her opinion on the situation. And she pretty much, what some might view a very snarky comment that, said, in her response, might as well, give us skirts and put us back in the kitchen. And when she made that statement, oh my goodness, that's when everything just, like I said, she fueled the flames to this fire. And then EDD responded, it's like, oh, well, how could you say that? How could you, categorize this situation in that particular manner and things like that. But I'm sorry, like I said, I will always have respect for Elena Delle Donne and Gina Ariema as well, because he was the very first person to actually strike up this conversation in 2012 when, in an article as well, he pointed out that he would like to lower the rims to possibly 7.2, inches, 7 feet 2 inches, to help elevate the game. So that was his idea. And then years later, Elena Delle Donne echoed his same statements. But my opinions will remain, as always, as last week. I am not in favor of lowering the rims because I just, I just don't think it would do very much for the sport. As we already previously talked about last week, there's the period where players will have to readjust, from WNBA to also overseas play as well, unless they too lower their rims, and then there's the NCAA as well. Also, in my opinion, the criticism, for the WNBA has nothing to do with the game itself. So people don't actually care about improving the game. They want to put their own ideas in other areas. So once again, this has blown over into even a bigger conversation, but I am not in favor of lowering the rims.
Reagan, Kate Fagan is a ESPN columnist and a panelist on Around the Horn who was on the show earlier today, and is a person I've admired and respected for the work that she's done for ESPN and for the league and for women's sports in general. And she made a very good point and comment during the little block talking about this on ATH earlier this afternoon about, not just adjusting, or lowering rims for, or just lowering the rims for the pros. But what about local rec centers? What about, school playgrounds, where boys and girls won't be able to play pickup ball together because there's going to be lower rims for them. So Kate, I think, brought up a lot of really good points about, this debate and discussion. But I guess, Reagan, obviously we've talked about this. You weren't with us, though, but, is there any, real formal stance or really any initial thoughts or reaction you have towards the story at all?
Me and KT were talking about this on Twitter, I think yesterday. I'm a little tied on this situation just because in a way I sort of agree with EDD, but in a way I don't. Um, as far as Kate Fagan's comment about pickup, I can't really say anything because I always play with the guys, and of course the guys aren't going to use a girls' ball because it's smaller and it's lighter. So I had to adjust, and they didn't give me time to adjust before the game, so I'm adjusting during the game. And I mean, yes, it's only a pickup game, but if you love the game, then you will adjust your game to be better, to get better under any circumstances. And as far as lowering the rims, like I said, I'm tied on the whole thing. I say if they're really thinking about doing it, then try it for a year, see what happens. If nothing happens, then go back. It's not like it's anything that you can't fix. It's not like you can't do a trial run. Yeah, it may ruin the game for a year, but you can at least say you tried it.
And Crystal, that's what I was going to bring up with you is, is there any safe way to somehow, some way test this lower rim system for, whether it's, maybe, because I believe guys at the NBA had a demo game, a regular season game that was a demo game for perhaps fixing the game clock to 11 minutes for something. They tried that with the Celtics and Nets a few seasons ago. They tried a 11-minute quarter system to see how that would work. So I guess, Crystal, I mean, if it's one game or one season at lower rims, Crystal, in your mind, if they do decide to go to this system for overseas and for the WNBA and at all levels, or at least to try this, I guess, Crystal, in your mind, what is the best way to, give this a dry run or tutorial to see how it would work for a future season, perhaps, in your mind, to go to the system?
I'm just about to go about
Yeah.
this subject because, for one, you said you're gonna have to adjust everything. I mean, it's just you're gonna have to adjust high school rims, college rims. It's harder. It's gonna make layups actually harder, not easier. You just have to adjust everything. For two, the whole Diana Taurasi thing. I think people took Diana Taurasi's comments out of context. I understand what Diana Taurasi was saying. Should she have said it in those words? Probably not. But she was actually, what she meant by the whole kitchen thing was, it was like, you're gonna just make them not respect us even more than what they don't. They already disrespect us. Don't make them disrespect us even more. Might as well go back to doing what we're quote unquote made to do. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I think basketball is such a great sport. It's the same. I mean, that's why I like basketball. The rules are the same everywhere you go. The rims are the same everywhere you go. I mean, if a person can't hit a layups. I mean, I don't understand what lowering the rim is actually going to do. I just don't think it's a good idea. I mean, yeah, they could do a trial run, but I just don't know if I think if you do make people turn away from the game even more than actually not doing a trial run. This subject is just it just keeps coming around. It's kind of tiring. You just see it all over the place. And going back to your questions, can you repeat it? I'm sorry, like I just got clouded. Can you repeat your question, Kellen?
No, all I wanted to ask was, what would the best bet be for them to try to do a demo run or a tutorial for this lower rim system in your mind?
If they were going to do that, the best bet would to do it in preseason. But I don't want to aim with the 9 foot rim. That's just me. And preseason would probably be the best. Honestly, I'm not trying to see clean dunks off of back. I don't want to see that. That's the only thing that's going to happen. People like Angel, it's easy doing what you do out there, and I think that what makes the game much better is the fact that that everything is equal. Pretty much it's an equal game.
All right, so Crystal's thought is perhaps try a dry run 9-foot rim during preseason games. But Eric, I know that you have spoken out against EDD in spite of her playing for your hometown team, but you strongly have shown your resentment/disagreement with her plan for the future. I guess, Eric, as much as this was kind of a underground conversation on Twitter that got spewed over to ESPN and the major media today, again, it was brought up 3 different times on 3 different shows in a 2-hour span today about this conversation. So I guess, Eric, what else would you like? Is there anything else for you to add to this conversation at all in your mind at all, or what do you got?
Yeah, this is actually I've got a lot to add, so it's important. So I'm putting the Game Boy down. Okay. It's getting serious. First of all, you guys know, as you said, I am strongly against lowering the rim for reasons already said. One, dunks do not make basketball better. That's a purely subjective opinion. 2, you're going to have to adjust your jumper and other shots. 3, you'd have to do it unilaterally, so FIBA would have to do it, college would have to do it, would high school have to do it? When girls dream about playing for the WNBA, well, okay, so I'm going to have to play on a shorter rim now? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And also, the issue with viewership is not lack of dunks. Like, that's ridiculous. If people who vehemently dislike the WNBA, who hate it, the typical Twitter troll who's on all the ESPN articles and comments, the typical egg avatar who's saying all this sexist nonsense, they're going to find a reason to say stuff about the WNBA, and if they lower the rims, they're just going to say, well, look, they're only dunking because they lower the rims. That must mean guys are better. Go back to the kitchen. Ha ha ha. It's going to happen. So I would say, as far as that's concerned, don't appeal to the trolls, okay? Because that's just what they are. They're irrelevant. Don't mind them. And that's something that Deladon herself has said. So I don't think that's where she's coming from in this issue. But as far as the Deladon versus Taurasi thing, okay. Crystal said they were taken out of context. First of all, I think Elena made a mistake because she kind of blew this out of proportion herself by saying, obviously Diana Taurasi did not mean they're actually going to go back to the kitchen. I mean, you should know what Diana Taurasi says by now. You should know what she likes to say. It was obviously sarcastic. It was a metaphor. She didn't mean it. It was just her way of saying, hey, I'm against the idea. But also, Edie herself said, I respect Diana. This is... I greatly, value her opinion. This is just my opinion. But then all of a sudden, boom, you have these articles coming up saying, oh, EDD slams Taurasi over the idea. Then they have her on SportsCenter saying, oh, what do you think about this? Then EDD, you double down on this position right now or else we're going to cut you off or whatever. And that's total media manipulation, all right? That's trying to make a story out of something that isn't there. It's trying to turn people against each other for the sake of discussion. That's just crap, okay? You keep that stuff on First Take. You keep that for the NBA, okay? That's one of the great things about the WNBA. You don't have people trying to manufacture debate by just bringing stuff up like this, by bringing up nonsense, by taking people's quotes out of context. Like, do you guys really think Elena Deladon and Diana Taurasi have a legit beef with each other over this? I don't think so, okay? But all of a sudden you have Phoenix fans saying, "Oh, EDD, you suck," blah blah blah. Leave Diana alone. And then Sky fans saying, "Oh, Diana, you suck. Leave EDD alone." And over what? Because people in the media, because you have these headlines coming up, taking things out of context. You have ESPN demanding that Elena fortify her position. See, it's not even about lowering the rims at this point, okay? It's about who's right, EDD or Tarazi, whose quote was taken less out of context, who's spoken, who's more well spoken on the issue, who's louder, who can we who can we feature on our program more often that'll give us better ratings? It's just crap. It's so stupid. Keep this out of the WNBA, please. Let's just play basketball, okay? If you want to lower the rims, like Crystal said, do it in an exhibition game. You had the Minnesota Lynx and the Washington Mystics last year do an analytics exhibition game, all right, where they only took threes or shots inside the paint. Cool. What did we learn from that? I don't really know because that game wasn't that good. But it was an exhibition, so nobody cared. If you want to lower the rims by a few inches, how about you do it in one of those games where some WNBA team plays Team China or whatever? Because then you'll have the effect of, hey, this is what the international teams think about it too. Because again, you'll have to do it unilaterally. You'll have to do it across FIBA and college and high school and so on and so forth. So I know I've been saying a lot here, and I'm probably talking very quickly because that's what happens when I get upset. But that's just my take on the situation. I think it's totally been blown out of proportion already. Let's talk about the Final Four. Let's talk about the unprecedented Syracuse and Washington runs. Let's talk about one of the greatest ever retiring. Let's talk about the upcoming WNBA draft. Let's talk about the things that matter, okay? Not some silly beef that probably doesn't even exist.
Yeah, Eric, pretty much. And we'll switch gears to a off the court but affecting women's sports, and I'm looking directly at my soccer colleague, that's Reagan, in this hangout. Reagan, obviously, major off the field news, though, involving the U.S. women's national team. 5 players put their names to a grievance and to a lawsuit against the U.S. Soccer Federation, citing, of course, the unequal pay that was also brought up and blown out of proportion by the Today Show on NBC, and also brought up on the same 3 shows in that 2-hour span on Around the Horn, Pardon the Interruption, His and Hers, and Sports Center. So 4 shows in a 2-hour span all talked about this major story, of course, featuring 5 of the U.S. women's national team players, including Carly Lloyd, Hope Solo, Becky Sauerbrunn, and 2 other players, including Alex Morgan, as well in the fray. So, obviously, Reagan, we know that there's the possibility of the women's national team bringing in $20 million more than the men's team. Also hearing today that there was a report put out that the women's national team had gained $14 million while the men's team had lost $2 million over the past few months going forward. And I'm going to probably have a little bit of Eric rant pretty soon about this thing, but it'll be more comparing this situation to the EDD, to the Deladon Taurasi quote-unquote beef going on. But Rap, how about your overall thoughts, though, about these 5 players, trying to send the long-awaited message about female sports being on the same playing field as men? What do you got to say?
I think it's great. I wish more players in the WNBA would do it. I mean, I know we have fans that don't like when the WNBA has like negative news out. But media is media. So as long as people are talking, I mean, yeah, you have your bad media, but the way I see it, more people have talked about the WNBA for the last week than they have during the whole season. And honestly, I guess it's just because people love bad media, or they just love to talk about players getting into it with other players. But at least we have people talking about the league. Um, as far as what the soccer players are doing, like I said, I love it. I feel like they should be speaking their voice. I feel like they should be, going after the money that they earned. Actually, like you said, they've brought in money while the men's team has lost money. They've been winning tournaments while the men's team has been losing, and it doesn't make sense for the women not to be paid while the men are being paid to lose. To me, that's just stupid. Why would you pay people to lose? That doesn't make sense. I mean, if that's the case, um, they don't really have to put forth the effort because they know they're going to get paid anyways. Where the women are leaving everything out on the field because if they don't win, then they don't get paid for playing the game. This whole topic has had me frustrated since 7 a.m. this morning, plus registering for classes. So, I'm all over the place today. I've been arguing with people about this topic all day. I don't know what to say.
Shorty, obviously, I know that in spite that out of the 5 people in this hangout, only 2 of us are really big and avid soccer fans. It's being rapping here, but Shorty, obviously, this is obviously something that does affect the female sports world, of course, in regards to the pay problems across everything in every female sport that's out there. I'd say about this. But I guess, Shorty, I guess what are your thoughts about finally, seeing some type of female athlete, but in this case you have 5 of them coming forward and saying, look, this is what we demand that you guys do, because this is flat out ridiculous. I mean, how does that make you feel as a female sports fan and advocate for female sports, make you feel to finally see, that there's, female athletes really willing to take a stand up and get and fight for what's right for what they think?
Well, I definitely, do, agree with those players who, are demanding, more, pay because, as Reagan already said, they are generating the revenue, therefore they should get paid. The only difference to me when it comes to them and the WNBA is that still the WNBA does not generate the same revenue as, women's soccer, so they really cannot demand the same kind of pay as the women's soccer team does generate, that high revenue due to them, winning a lot, winning tournaments, winning, the Olympics and things like that. So they do have a right to ask for higher pay, and they're still, getting shafted, by the league and things like that. It's definitely not fair. And this goes outside of, the game. And then we talk about, the gender gap as far as equal pay and things like that. And, it's right on their part to ask, about it because they deserve it. And quickly going back to what, Eric, talked about with the whole EDD Tarasi situation. And, yes, I do also agree with his statements, about it because, it just seemed like ESPN is just, using this and a bunch of major news outlets as well. They pretty much they want to see a cat fight. To be honest, they want to see some Real Housewives of Atlanta type of cat fight. Someone comes in. I guess DT can be Nene and Elena Deladon could be another housewife, and they're all cat fighting and throwing shade and things like that. But yeah, they're really fueling the flames to that. And to be honest, it's just a discussion. It's not really that big of a deal. Also, read another article where another news publication had talked about it, and at the end of the article they said, "Oh, we hope that someone brings back Celebrity Death Match, so they can fight." Because if anyone remembers that show, they had the cartoon celebrity characters on there, fighting in the ring. So they really wanted to see that, with DT and EDD. But again, that's why ESPN is, contributing to making it bigger than what it is because they literally want to see a cat fight, and I don't think it's that big of a deal. I just think it's a discussion between 2 players, and we always welcome discussion, whether it's for or against, but still it's just merely a discussion, nothing bigger than that.
Crystal, again, I think for the first time in quite some time, we've actually had a female, either a female athlete or a group of female athletes finally take a stand, about, the things that they go through. Obviously, there was a lot of good stuff. There was good coverage of this today. A lot of good talking points, positive talking points about this story coming out today. But, Crystal, everything that they have gone through, of course, they win the World Cup, but, of course, the con of it, of course, playing on the artificial turf, canceling a game in Hawaii, a player ripping her ACL playing on the artificial turf during that victory tour over the holidays this year. So, Crystal, I guess, any thoughts, though, about finally seeing a group of female athletes finally taking a stand, though, against, all the problems that they go through to, just to play their sport?
I'm gonna say about damn time. I mean, I'm tired of, especially being a female that partakes in sports. I'm tired of women athletics getting disrespected in any kind of way, whether it's pay, whether it's, you should do this to alter the game because, you make this better, whether it's, stuff like ESPN saying, oh, these two players arguing. It's just about time, man. I mean, pay for women's sports is something we've talked about a lot, especially with WNBA. So hopefully there's a lot of WNBA players that will probably follow suit. I mean, like Jordy said, it's different, but still. I mean, these athletes, they work just as hard. They probably work sometimes harder than, they don't flash. So I think hopefully people from all other women's sports, not just with WNBA or whatever, take this stand, look at the stand that the soccer team is going and say, hey, we could do that too. I mean, it's sad. Women's sport, the world and ESPN and everybody, if it's not a man, then it doesn't matter. If it's not LeBron James, then it didn't happen. So I just say it's about damn time. Like, it's something, when it comes to women's sports, something's got to give, and I'm happy that they're taking a stand because they do deserve more money. These people have families, these people have bills, these people have rent. Like, you never have to hear about a male sport worry about, where they're going to get their next paycheck from, where they're going to pay this bill from, where they're going to live. Like, you never hear that situation. So I'm happy. I don't know. I'm frustrated, and I kind of don't really want to speak on it anymore.
Eric, there was 23,310 people at Qualcomm Stadium when the national team played Ireland in a exhibition game and beat them 5-0. But for me, that was kind of a, as a sports fan, that was kind of almost like a life-changing experience going to that game amongst, many young up-and-coming soccer players, friends of mine that were there from the university I announced for, and obviously, seeing greatness on the field, but, I got chills, I got goosebumps, up my spine, up my arms when I heard the national anthem playing, and just knowing that here Team USA had brought a World Cup back to America, whether it was male or female. But again, like Reagan said, though, I mean, obviously, the men are for right now getting paid to lose games, and their head coach may be getting fired in a couple of days or weeks for how he's been doing so far. But here, the national team for the women, Eric, wins, and they win. And they win, pretty regularly, and here they're only getting paid, and they're getting paid 4 times less than the men's national team. And Tim Howard, one of the greatest U.S. soccer players of all time, and their starting goaltender or goalkeeper even said, I feel like they should be getting paid as much as we do, So that the men's team has their back. But I guess, Eric, to the question we've asked, though, is it, what are your thoughts about finally seeing a group of female athletes or a female athlete finally taking a stand against, all the stuff that, pretty much is, that are roadblocks for their, sports playing career?
It's long overdue, and it's something that needs to happen. They need to take a stand if this is going to be achieved. And I think it's great that it's the U.S. women's national team who is doing it, because they're kind of, I don't want to say they're an outlier, but they're typically held in higher esteem among men in the country, among male sports fans, than most like WNBA teams or softball teams or whatnot. I'm fairly sure. Am I right on that? Like the U.S. women's national team? Yeah. Okay. So I think it's good that they're doing it, because then people who may not even know, people who maybe not watch women's sports because they're just totally ignorant, they might say, hey, whoa, the U.S. women's national team has a problem. I had no idea this is such a widespread problem. It's kind of sad to think that would still be an issue, such ignorance these days, but it unfortunately is. So yeah, it's a huge deal, obviously, and I hope that they can get this, because it would be an historic victory for women's athletics in general, and it'd be definitely a step in the right direction, I would say.
So again, folks, for more on this, again, the U.S. women's national team, 5 players have put their name on a grievance in a lawsuit about pretty much for wage discrimination that was reported earlier today. The 5 players include Becky Sauerbrunn, Hope Solo, included as well in this. Between those two as well is Alex Morgan, and team captain Carly Lloyd also involved with this wage discrimination lawsuit going forward. And guys, I think in regards to this story, and I was going to compare this to the, Diana Taurasi and EDD quote unquote beef here is, for in regards to this discussion that we've been having that's turned into a, all out wildfire that's burning down the forest. For everyone not involved in this in regards to, people on Twitter that, like Eric said, though, that are going to, go on the comic box or tweet back to SportsCenter ESPN about something in regards to women's basketball, just shut up, please. I mean, get over it, move on, go back under your rock, and just leave it for the people that are fans of a sport that can, take it to the next level. You can just go back under your rock, shut up, and leave us all alone here. But I think, though, guys, is whether this was a joking reply back by Diana Taurasi or whether it was something serious, though, is, there's no room for that, unless you want to go take it and go and be at WrestleMania 32 on Sunday night. If you want to go and, have EDD and DT in a cage match at WrestleMania on Sunday, all fine and dandy with me. But in this case, as Eric said, I mean, there really is no room for that in the WNBA, and I've not seen any of this in regards to how people from out of nowhere have pretty much come in and invaded the league and invaded the fan bases for one simple, misconstrued and blown out of proportion, idea. This was someone's idea, that it was. And obviously, yes, you have one of the greatest of all time in Diana Taurasi, yes, sarcastically or not give her opinion. But then it brings on the trolls, it brings on the ignorant sports fans, it brings on all the stuff that Eric alluded to that we don't need in the WNBA. So for all those people, again, shut the hell up and go back into your closet or go back under your rock and just leave us the hell alone, because we have bigger and better things to watch than what you'll be watching over your summer. So you can go back and watch NBA Hardware Classics, go back and watch Stanley Cup Final reruns, go back and watch MLS Cup from 1996, go back and watch the Arena Football League from 1996, or go back and watch something that you'll enjoy watching. And I don't mean to be rude to Eric and Crystal, but go back and watch the 95 96 Bulls teams and leave all those jokes out of the WNBA posts on ESPN, on Instagram, and on everything else included, because there is just no need to continue to beat down the dead horse that is, the suffrage that, women's athletics has gone through, and in this case the WNBA for 20 years. I mean, yes, I have done my best, guys, to, block it out, not read it. I know Eric one time had put out on Twitter that he said, don't read the comments, don't read the comics. Oh, no, I read the comics. What am I going to do with myself now? But I think Eric and I pretty much hit nails on the head is, in this case, obviously, guys, I know that sometimes ideas can get, laughed at in this case, either with the idea for the network or Steve Jobs with Apple, but when they become pretty damn successful, like Apple has or other ideas, that someone's onto something. So, I mean, yes, this was a general discussion amongst a circle of people, amongst all of us, that sadly got blown out of proportion by the media, and I think Eric probably won Rant of the Year perhaps for the network perhaps, and I'm like a very far distant second for that. But again, folks, we'll have more coverage of the WNBA in the upcoming and everything else coming up sometime very soon. Again, we'll be back with you folks tomorrow night, more than likely. If not, we'll be back with you folks on Monday, and hopefully we'll be talking about the national title game for the Final Four and putting a bow and wrap on the 2015-2016 NCAA women's basketball season. I should mention, folks, by the way, as well, a quick local note from the NCAA Division II basketball. The Point Loma Nazarene University Sea Lions women's basketball team has a new head coach for the first time in 17 years. Lisa Faulkner, formerly at Boston College, will be the new head honcho for the Sea Lions women's hoops teams next season. Of course, replacing longtime head coach Bill Westfall, who, of course, retired after last season after 17 years coaching Point Loma there. And again, Lisa Faulkner from Boston College is now the new head coach of the Point Loma Nazarene University Sea Lions women's basketball team. With that, folks, until tomorrow night, and if not until Monday, Horik Nemchok in Elmhurst, Illinois, for Crystal Thomas and Tanisha Stewart, both up in Los Angeles, and Reagan Patrick joining us from Memphis tonight. Under the weather, Cal McClurk from Studio 171 in San Diego signing off. We'll see you folks back here tomorrow night, and if not, again, like I said, if not tomorrow night, we'll be back here with you folks on Monday. Take care, folks, and enjoy your weekend. See you back here tomorrow night, or like I said, if not, back here on Monday. Till then, folks, take care. Good night. Bye-bye.